It's lovely, isn't it? To really enjoy the coldness, the frost. After Christmas and New Year has passed, we can still wander around the woods and see how nature adapts to these colder months, January, February. It's an interesting time before the rebirth of spring. We see how nature copes with the cold, preparing itself, resting before it flourishes again. There is so much to see in this time, so much to study and observe. The animals, the plants, the trees, all adapted to this time of dark nights and icy days. There's something about the freshness of the air as you breathe it in into your lungs. Something about it on your face wakes you up in a way that's different from the heat. So, as we rest now in this cabin, as we listen to the crackle of the fire, and I watch the snow fall out of the window, I was thinking, perhaps you would like to hear a story. Would you like that? Well, would you like to know where the snowflakes really come from? They tell you that they come from weather forming in the sky. No. A nice story. That's not the truth. No. The truth is that snowflakes come from the cloud giant, and a story of love, heartbreak, and healing. So, let us begin the story of the snowflakes and where they really come from. So, there is a giant amongst the clouds. He hops around the world on these clouds. He's huge. Jumps from one to the other. He can jump at vast gaps. Sometimes his head goes into space. That's how high he needs to jump to get to the next cloud. But he never misses a cloud, and he never falls to the ground. He is a very skilled cloud jumper, this giant in the clouds. And one day he fell in love. For he met another cloud jumper. He didn't realize there were others. And she would smile at him and then jump away. And he would lose her. Where did she go? Eventually he found her. And she agreed for them to go on a date. And they went out for dinner. Up in the clouds. It was a beautiful occasion. He made beautiful candles with little flickering cloud flames and a beautiful table for them to sit at. It was a wonderful date. They met again and again, but in the end she lost interest and moved on. The cloud giant was beside himself with grief, could not understand what he had done wrong. But in this instance, it just was not meant to be. He was given hope, though. There were many other cloud jumpers. He didn't realize this. So he continued to jump around more frequently than he had. It seems he had just missed them. The world's a big place. There's nowhere near as many cloud jumpers as there are people. So it's easy to think you're the only one. And eventually he came across others. He made friends. He met more women to go on dates with, looking for love. And sadly, try as he may, it never lasted. And he felt so incomplete. He took to sculpting as a way of distracting himself and channeling his emotional pain into a form of artwork. He would reach down to the mountains as the clouds gathered so close to them. Where it's high up, sometimes the mountains go higher than the clouds, and he would scoop up ice, and he would use this as his clay, as his material. He became an ice carver, very talented, and he would carve models of sorrow, heartache. Hearts he would make, mostly, leaving them in the clouds where he had been, and moving on. Then one day he was sat with a friend, and he was talking to the friend about his sadness, about his heartache, about his pain. And his friend, another cloud jumper, said to him, "Why do you seek this thing, this romance, this love, so much?" The cloud jumper thought for a minute. He said, "I seek completion." The friend looked at him and said, "Romance is a wonderful thing. Romantic love is a wonderful, wonderful thing. if found to be cherished, certainly. But don't ever look for your completion in it. The cloud jumper looked confused. What do you mean? Surely this is where I find a feeling of completion, a sense of completion. No, said his friend. Completion must be found within. Think about it. How could you find your completion in another? Cherish the relationship, of course. But how could you find your completion in another? It's yours, after all. And what if that person leaves you? Have you now lost your completion? It doesn't make sense, does it? The cloud jumper thought on this for a while and realized that perhaps his friend was right. He had been looking for love for the wrong reason. He decided that he would try something he had heard about from the humans. Something they call meditation. He would sit in the clouds and he would meditate, looking for the peace within himself, looking for the completion inside. Over time, he began to feel a real peace inside. He found completion in himself. He decided he would continue to look for dates, but with a different perspective. He would now pursue love, not for completion, but for the beauty in the experience, to share one's life with another, to care for another. He went on these dates with a much calmer sense in himself, and his dates found this attractive. He held back, controlled his emotions. He presented himself as a much more stable individual, patient, controlled. And it paid off, for he did meet someone. They began to date, and they developed a wonderful relationship. And after a while, they married and had children. The children were incredible, and the cloud jumper loved jumping around with them and showing them the world. His wife as well, and they would explore together. And then he remembered something. He remembered all of those sculptures he had made of eyes and left in the clouds. And he decided he needed to get rid of them. So he would go around with his family, and they were very impressed with the sculptors, but he explained to them where they had come from, the wisdom he had learned, and that he wanted to get rid of them. So he would take these sculptures and he would crush them into tiny little pieces. And the pieces would fall to the ground. He would only do this on a cold day. And over time, people began to refer to these little pieces. They decided to call them snowflakes. And that, my friend, is where snow comes from. So now you know. Sometimes there's a more interesting explanation. Well, I don't know about you, but I could do with a cup of coffee. Would you like one? Perhaps I'll tell you the story of where coffee comes from next. I'm only joking. Seriously though, I'm going to put the kettle on. I'll be back in a minute.